Everybody, it's Jeremy. Welcome back to Dreamers Game 1, where we are playing Yomi. This is turn 38. Let's go and jump into things. We got a lot to cover this time around. We have completed Conjuration 2 and Conjuration 3 on our way up to Conjuration 4. So, boom, Conjuration 2 and 3. Notate that down. Not sure how I feel about this like list scenario. I think I'm still gonna do it for a little while to see how it goes, but I'm not sure if it's super useful for people. If you find it super useful for me to list out all this information each time, let me know, because I'm actually pretty interested to see what people are thinking. So, continuing onwards, we have done some site searching. We found a magic site in the Grey Mountains. We found a painted cave. That's pretty nice. So Masaru has been going around looking for nature and astral sites. We haven't found... We found some in... feel like... Yeah, no, we've found a couple here or there. Wolf Oak, this Enchanted Field, etc. So we found a painted cave, which is a +1 astral pearl. So we're up to 5 astral pearls per turn, which is pretty okay. Not great. Nearly 40 turns into the game, but it's getting us somewhere. So astral +1 for gym income. At that. And then we have a series of battles. So let's just watch these. We have Agartha versus Hinnom in Agartha. So we saw this little force earlier on. A group of magma children led by some mages. And it is up against what's a fair amount of PD here for Hinnom. The magma children are going to do relatively well, especially when supported by mages. Not too bad. Agartha wins pretty handily there, but it's just against province defense, even though this is a fair amount of province defense. We attack in Shambolic. And this is one of our Bakemono Show with Yari raiding forces. And it's just up against a little amount of PD, so nothing really doing there. We lose one Bakemono Show to that commander. Is what it is. Then we get counter-raided in Osteen by a kind of scary little force. We've got Avite light infantry, which are... those are okay. But 3 Melkarts is... that's a bit spooky. Let's see if they do anything interesting. I don't think they've really changed up their tactics in the last 10 turns or so, so... they're gonna bless themselves, do some Iron Skin, Astral Shield, Temper Flesh. Pretty simple and easy. So that's gonna be a win for them without any losses. We have Hinnom versus Agartha in Cormark. Let's see how this goes. This is... ooh, okay, so this is a portion of that big, scary... Rephite warrior army. So just a big line of Rephite warriors getting divine blessed. And this is the remnants of the Agarthan force of Great Olms. And, you know, they're firing off, but I think it's kind of like how we called it last time, right? Even though there are more Great Olms, the Rephites have high... or were more Great Olms. The Rephites have high magic resistance, and they have high HP, right? Just so, for example, a Great Olm trying to Mind Blast something only does one point of damage, right? So it's a magic resistance negates, right? So they've got to beat a high magic resistance, and they only do 1 point of damage. Really what it's there for is a force of, you know, 50 to 100 ohms can obliterate 10 things because that's so many units focus firing on a small number of units. But against a large number of units who have a lot of HP and are going to resist a fair amount of things. The Great Olms themselves, they're still not bad, right? But what they're designed to do there is they're designed to stun the person, right? So this guy is, yeah, he's paralyzed right now because of the Mind Blast. So what you're looking for there is to break up formations and have your own infantry be able to handle whatever you're going up against, but that's not going to work with Rephites, right? Rephites are very strong, and it's just no bueno. So obviously, like, this force is not going to be able to do that, but that's what the plan was for the previous force of, you know, the 100 or so Great Olms with infantry, etc., etc. It just didn't work out. So again, nothing lost there. We get counter-rated in Earthsore Desert by a Melkart. You know, we're not going to be able to do anything here. Throws up Fire Shield. Oh, this one's a flyer. Has winged shoes. Okay. Cool. That could be dangerous for us if he decides to start raiding our interior, but depending on what location he jumps into, his protection's low enough that we could bonk him on the head with some Onis, basically. So we'll see how this goes. And then we attacked in the fortress of Jabero. We just have a couple of Onis. We have our prophet over here, a Terui. And there's not much here, right? So just gonna throw some flames, have our co-Onis run in and try to do some work. Our prophet zips on in with his quickness. So relatively easy peasy. We lose nothing there thanks to our spirit form. And yeah, okay, so we have a 2-win, 2-loss record with Hinnom this turn. Got that down. And then we have a series of events. So in Llama, we have a plus 400% tax and a province income boost. Let's check Llama, actually. So Llama is, you know, not an especially wealthy province. Had this happened in, say, Black Harbor or in Zinthra, right, that would be a very robust 400% income for the turn. That'd be amazing. But where it is, that's kind of a paltry situation. It's very, very lackluster, unfortunately. Scythia, there is a horror cult. Scythia is up here in Hinnom territory, though. In Iron Caverns, a cult of Gaia has taken root, and this one, I don't remember if we forget about this or not, but this is another one of those scenarios of it's just going to cause unrest. I don't particularly care if it causes unrest. We're going to cause a lot of unrest. It's kind of an interesting side effect of not having to worry about some effects like that as Yomi. So, that's in Iron Caverns. In Kodal Swamp, we have a Rebirth event, Fire. In Menace, a few gems have been found in the split trunk of an oak, so we get nature gems +3. And then in Hinwood, we get a nice little scenario here. So this is over here in Hinwood. We get a lab, Astral Pearls, Death Gems, Nature Gems +4, Blood Slaves +2, and Girdle of Might. So Girdle of Might, assuming most of you are aware what a Girdle of Might is, but if you haven't seen it, this is what a Girdle of Might is. Nice little reinvigoration and strength item that you put into a miscellaneous slot. Pretty good, actually. Very useful. Not as useful for us, necessarily, but because I tend to favor things like Boots of the Messenger, but if you don't want to use Boots of the Messenger and you need reinvigoration, you can throw on a Girdle of Might, and that's still really useful. You can do things like, if you go that route, you can do things like using winged shoes, right, for flying, or winged boots for flying, so that you can have access to that while still having reinvigoration, and the +3 strength is kind of just a nice bonus, that type of thing. So Not an unuseful item. Quite good. And that's really that's really it as far as events go. So a lot of little things we got this turn. So we got a lab, one astral pearl, one death gem, 7 nature gems, +2 blood slaves, and a girdle of might. Notate that. I don't know if all of this information is gonna fit on a single thing. I'll do like push things off or something. I don't know. We'll see. I'll plan this out later. So we did that in Hinwood. We did have a... No, we didn't have this. We witnessed a battle in Greendale. And this is for Ubar. Ubar got attacked by some independents in Greendale. Just some Vine Ogres and some Vine Men. Versus their relatively meager province defense. So this will probably go the way of the independents. Yeah, those Vinemen smashed. Oh, and someone... Ah, this guy is flooding the field back here. Yeah. Mossbeard, the Ivy King. Yeah, that's gonna just destroy everything that's going on here. Nice. Okay, so Ubar gets popped by some independents. Very interesting. And then we did some patrolling throughout the area. So we've got, as always, we've got a fair amount of movement. But again, most of this movement is inconsequential movement, or it's movement that is just moving Onis around, etc., etc. We are starting to acquire a fair little chunk of units in Missia. And I'm hoping to start getting a decent amount of free spawn going in the below. Other than that, we've just got smatterings here or there. Movement-wise, I don't think there's anything crazy interesting over in our territories. So from the Hinnom front, we are moving... Ateriu is moving away from this situation. Aterio is headed into Flimistan to try to potentially pick up maybe some gear, right? We've got some potential gear for Aterio to grab. He is a decent prophet, and he has a nice bonus with the Champion's Gladius. So I do want to kind of protect him. Quickness as well, right? Although I guess, quickness on top of quickness is irrelevant. But there's also no real reason to keep him with this army. Like, they do not benefit from having a prophet divine bless them, really. So there's no reason for him to stick around. Tokimochi is going to patrol the area in case Hinnom gets kind of frisky and decides to jump on us, unless he commits something like a large force. Which, if he commits a large force, they'll obliterate this small force. But if he doesn't commit a large force, we'll pop just like a single mail card or something like that. And then, Kiyomoto or Kiyotomo and Tadashi are gonna continue to just pop around and raid. Let's talk about this for a second, right? Hinnom has. It looks like at this point, Hinnom has destroyed Agartha's military might, right? There is not much, I think, that Agartha is going to have left on the table. Maybe if they manage to take their capital back, but I don't think that they're going to take their capital back with this force. I don't think they're going to have the time. I don't think Hinnom's going to let them. So, Hinnom is... Agartha is on the way out. Hinnom is going to be able to clean this up probably in a couple turns, 5 to 10 turns. And then I'm going to be stuck dealing with Hinnom alone. So, what does that mean for me? Well, it means a couple of different things. One, I'm not horribly terrified of Hinnom, generally speaking. So, I personally believe that we have a better rating game, right? We have more capable, stealthy units that we can raid, stealth, raid, stealth, raid, stealth with. And we can start producing those basically whenever we want to. It's not incredibly difficult for us to put together like a force of Bakemono chiefs and Yaris and things like that. Pretty easy. We actually have 2 forces that are ready to go. They just, I just need to pull the trigger and be like, okay, let's send them off to go do this. I just have them doing other shit right now. So there's that, right? Like, I believe we have a better raiding game. I also believe, so there's the stealthy raiding game, and then there's just kind of like the overt raiding game, and the overt raiding game is the concept of like Melkarts versus Dionis, really, right? I think, generally speaking, that we also have the upper hand there, especially now that we're at Construction 6, and I can start to lean into that and start producing things like Armor of Knights and etc. etc. I do think that gives us a pretty significant, maybe not edge, but that is a very nice thing to deal with. I also just feel like Dionis are, generally speaking, in the scenario of raiding, a little better than like a Melkart is. But if they go head to head, then that's a different kind of, discussion, right? They can run into different issues in that type of situation. So there's that. And the kind of on the same vein though, like, I feel, generally speaking, that we have a better chance when raiding Hinnom than Hinnom does when raiding us. And the reason for that is our free spawn. So if Hinnom, we basically have the ability, if we jump into a Hinnom province, we're not worried about their province defense unless they, for some reason, like, do a PD dump, a really large PD dump. The issue is if we bump into one of their counter raiding groups, like a couple of Rephites or some Melkarts or something like that. That's where we run into an issue. But so that means we have to bump. But the same is true for him, right? Like, if he's raiding us and he bumps into any of our stuff, then that's going to be an issue for him. What kind of, I think, puts it in our favor is our free spawn can kill things like Rephites or Melkarts, right? Especially if the Melkarts aren't super buffed or wearing the right gear or things like that. For example, like these Aka Onis, they hit for 27 damage. Now, they aren't magic weapons, so if it's the right Melkart and they put up things like Body Ethereal or things like that, this can become significantly less viable. But we definitely have the ability, right, for, Onis or Kuro Onis or even just our base Ko Onis do 16 damage, right? Like, that can absolutely whittle down something like a Melkart. So if they jump into the wrong province, even if it's just something like Iron Caverns, right? Like, this is a fair number of individuals that can damage something like a Melkart. So if Hinnom tries to raid us, and they pick the wrong province, they could just be throwing their Melkarts or things like that away, basically. So again, I feel like we have a better, route to victory in the raiding game. What is the concern is that Hinnom has a more efficient, in theory, economy than we do. They have better infrastructure, right? Buildings than we do. And they have a more powerful singular fighting force than we do when it comes to like all those Rephite warriors, right? So those Rephites against us in a big ass line, yeah, they'll butcher our demons. We would need demons like to the point of like 4-1 on home territory in turmoil, probably to be able to take that type of fight. And that's rough because we don't have that's not impossible for us to achieve, but we don't have that right now. We have to get some additional free spawn going. We have not been in a good position to really do that, and I'm trying to make the efforts, but it's rough, right? So a 1v1 battle against Hinnom is going to be a challenging endeavor. which is why I'm trying to not have it be a 1v1. I am having conversations with Agartha, I'm having conversations with Ermor, and I'm also starting to look to Lanka, right? Should Agartha fall, or begin to fall, right? Agartha is potentially an ally, or could potentially be an ally, be against Hinnom, right? So, interested in where this goes. Not sure. It might ultimately end up being a scenario where we're like, okay, well, look, this happened. This isn't going to be a good war for us to stick into. Hinnom, do you want peace? So I'm not against the concept of peace. I'm open to the idea, but we'll just have to see if that is a route that is where we want to go. In the meantime, what are we doing from other standpoints? Infrastructure-wise, we are rebuilding the temple in the below. We lost that to an event like a turn or two ago, so we're gonna rebuild the temple here so that we can get that free spawn going. The issue with free spawn being is you have to have Dominion in the place, so we've got to get the temple set back up, get some preaching going in the below, etc., etc., and then this place will be good for it'll be a good location to generate free spawn in. You know, so +1 temple is what we're doing for buildings. Notate that. Oops. And then we have our first ritual, I think, in a very long time. And I'm not sure I'm gonna. So people who have watched me play games before know that I have a bit of a compulsion when it comes to site searching. This is not always efficient. In fact, more often than not, it is not efficient. But I do it anyways because I have to have in my mind the certainty that a place has been completely searched. So I'm going to start doing Dark Knowledges probably basically every turn until every single one of our locations is site searched, and we're probably going to be doing that with a lot of other stuff as well. So at Conjuration 4, we actually get Voice of Apsu, which we can cast on this Azure Maze, so we're probably going to start casting that next turn. And then we're going to go up Evocation, which will give us access to Arcane Probing. So we're going to start doing that once we get that in probably like 3 turns. And then we might even go up Thaumaturgy to get the other ones as well, because I'm a psychopath and that's how my mind works. But the point being is I'm not sure if I'm going to track every single one of these, because eventually it might end up being this scenario where we have like 5 or 6 site searches, remote site searches per turn. And I'm not sure that's valuable knowledge to list out, but for now, we'll see. But for now, rituals, dark knowledge, 1 dark knowledge. Let me notate that. And then as far as forging goes, we are doing 1 owl quill, which we will continue to do for as long as we can. And we're doing 1, 2, and 3 lightless lanterns. So forging, 1 owl quill, and 3 lightless lanterns. And let's talk about that for a second, right? So it's been a handful of turns since we have completed Construction 6, and we're at the point to where we're producing about 3 lightless lanterns per turn. We do not have the fire gem income to support that. So what my plan is to try to do that for a couple turns until we get, most of our researching force outfitted with lightless lanterns, and then we'll probably back off until we have like 1 lightless lantern per turn or something like that. Our research is speeding up. We've gone from 300 to 370-ish in just a handful of turns, and that's basically because of the lightless lanterns. Every lightless lantern that we produce, for instance, we're losing 4 research ability because we're not researching with this Onishigo, but we're gaining 12 out of the lightless lantern that he produces, right? So kind of inefficient basically, by the way, to be doing this on these Chunaris, I should... So we have one lightless lantern here. I should be doing another lightless lantern here on that guy. And... even just like a lightless lantern on one of the Dione or something like that would be perfectly fine. Because these Chunari have better base research ability, so they should be researching rather than forging. That's just an inefficiency, right? Like I'm losing what, like 6 for an Onishugo and 4 for a Dione, so I'm losing 10 research ability per turn basically by having these Chunari forge these lightless lanterns instead of having other individuals forge them. Which I shouldn't be doing, but in the grand scheme of things, probably not the worst thing that I'm doing. Our research, if we continue on this route, I think our research is going to pick up fairly quickly. My goal is to try to get up to 500, 600 pretty fast so that we can start to look at some of these higher options first. This is another thing that I like to do in the mid game, though. Like, I know it's probably just me excusing my behavior for the, you know, like the remote site searching things. But I do like to cross off a couple of things, like get level 4 in a bunch of different things, or you know, 4 conjuration, 4 alteration, 3 evocation, 5 or you know 4 thaumaturgy or whatever, right? Because it does put you kind of on the cusp for a lot of other powerful things, right? And at this point in the game, it's only going to take us a couple of turns to do those types of things. Like this turn, we'll have Conjuration 4 this turn. Conjuration 4 is going to get us other good stuff aside from things like Voice of Apsu. It's going to give us things like Summon Shikome and Ghost Generals. So that'll be... that's good, right? But it also gets us Voice of Apsu, so it's kind of like a cheaty way of gaining some power, but also gaining access to those rituals. And then things like Evocation, right? We might not be intending on casting a lot of Evocations now, but having access to some higher level Evocations could actually be useful to us if we need to aim at researching them. And we are going to get some other useful things along the way, like Magic Duel or what have you. So, again, I'm just kind of excusing my behavior, but we can do this relatively quickly. 1 turn for Conjuration 4, where we're at. We won't get Evocation 1 off of this, but the following turn, we should get Evocation 1 and 2. The turn after that, we should get Evocation 3, at least. I mean, we might get Evocation 3, but I don't think we'll get Evocation 3 in the same turn as 1 and 2. So 3 turns total to get all of what we have queued right now completed. And then if we do decide to run up Thaumaturgy to like Thaumaturgy 4 or 5, that's not going to take very long either. That's probably only going to take 2 turns to get up to there, maybe 3 depending on how high we go. So it's really quick to skip through these things in the mid game. The aside being is if we wanted to aim for something like, say we wanted to go for unique items, right? We could be making a fair amount of headway in that direction right now and make it there by like turn 50. But it's, yeah, that is probably the smarter choice. Not that specifically, right? Like going to Construction 8, but aiming for a specific thing like that. Like being like, okay, we want to go for Alteration, ultimately 9, but we're going to go for 6 for End of Weakness, and then 7, because we're going to use Mass Protection in response to End of Weakness. Blah, 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 blah. Go ultimately for Army of Gold and Lead, right? So those would be probably stronger options in the short term, but I'm not going to do that because I have crazy brain. Anyways, from a world or game state scenario, I believe Helheim is probably going to pop Arcocephale this turn or next turn. And Ubar seems to be rolling over Saramatia pretty quickly. So I'm not sure if Saramatia is going to be able to fight back effectively, or if I'm just wrong and things aren't as dire as they look. Maybe Saramatia, because Ubar is one of those scenarios of they can raid really, really effectively, but did they win any major engagements? And I don't know that yet. So I'm really interested in seeing how this turns out, because if Ubar just stomps on Saramatia, that's a very big neighbor for us to be involved with, and also be involved with Hinnom, right? So we're gonna see how that all turns out in the very near future, probably. That's gonna be it for this turn. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. It really helps me out. If you'd like to see me live, head over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/thedistanthorizon.